right, so welcome to Play the Ink. I'm Zach Hale, and today we do something a little different. So normally we have a performer and composer on Play the Ink, but today we're just going to have three of the performers for Campground 23. So we have Julianna Eidle, Laura Usiskin, and Jamie Jordan. And then we have two other people, Arda and Sini, that will be coming with us on the next episode because they are in Finland and they're probably asleep right now, I think. I forget how the time difference works. So we'll have them on separately. So thank you all for being with us today. So I guess what we can start about is we can just go through each person. You can say just something about yourself, where you live, the instrument that you play, and just also so everyone knows, this is on the camp website. If you go to events and it talks about Campground 23, you can go in there and we have little bios in each one of these people. So let's start. We can start with Jamie.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jamie Jordan and I sing. And I was lucky enough to be involved in Campground 2022. So I'm very excited to be coming back. I live in New York City, but I did meet me and several of the other artists that are affiliated with camp at Eastman. Um, and some other people went to Eastman, but not at the same time. And including some of the composers that I'm working with and have also been part of Campground 2022. So, any questions?
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, and she has you've been involved with the McCormick Percussion Group. I know you played some things
Yes.
with them. You've played
Yeah.
some of Bauschender's pieces when he was a professor at USF. He is
Yes.
now at Penn State, but
Yes.
so yeah, Laura or sorry, Jamie has been around USF for a little bit before Campground for sure. All right, we can go now to Laura.
Hello, I'm Laura Usiskin, and I play the cello. And I'm originally from outside Chicago. I live in Atlanta right now, and I went to school in New York. I did a lot of new music in New York, and then I lived in Connecticut, where I did not so much new music. I did a lot of early music in Connecticut, and then I moved, which what everybody does after they lived in Connecticut, which is to move to Alabama. That's a natural progression. And as I was sort of thinking about camp and thinking about how it fits in what I've done, when I lived in Montgomery, Alabama, and I was really involved with Clefworks, which is a great new music organization there. And then I was in Birmingham, Alabama, where there's the Birmingham Art Music Alliance, and I did a lot of with them. I mean, you're talking years of playing and organizing. And then in Atlanta, I'm the cellist of Ensemble Vim, that's VIM, and it's a new music collective. We do a lot of concerts, a lot of projects. It's a very active group. Recently, I played with Rocket City New Music in Huntsville. I'm just like plugging all the Southern new music things. I did a collaboration. Vim did a collaboration with Ensemble SRQ in Sarasota. So I feel like I'm like the village new music cellist like in the region here, Alabama, Georgia, Florida. And so I'm excited to participate in camp, which this will be my first year doing that.
Awesome, very cool. Thank you. And I was just reading through your bio too, and is this true? You have a degree in neuroscience and behavior?
Yes, I did the Columbia Juilliard Joint Program, and you can major in whatever you want at for Columbia. And I loved it. I still love reading about it, but I'm way out of date with my info. It's been a while, and that field moves fast. But yeah, that's sort of a previous life of mine.
Cool, very interesting. Awesome. And then we'll finish with Juliana Idle.
Yeah, hi. I'm a Cincinnati-based flutist. I actually grew up in Atlanta, where Laura's at now, but I've been in the Midwest for a while. This is also my first year at camp. But I kind of got plugged in by one of our other percussionists, Kevin. We played in a couple new music projects here in Cincinnati together. Project Kevin started, Cincinnati New Music Ensemble. So I'm looking forward to coming this year and yeah, working with all of you guys soon.
Awesome. So I think I got everyone. So Jamie, we know why you know Unmi, and then Juliana, Kevin. So Laura, how did you get involved in this? I forgot to ask you that.
Unmi contacted me, and I think it was through Emily Coe, who's a composition faculty at UGA. She's coming as well, and she's one of the core members of Ensemble Vim, the Atlanta-based group. So I think it was through Emily Coe that that she got the referral for me.
Okay, great. Very cool. All right, so yeah, I mean, this is super fun. This is one of the great things about campground. We have all the people coming in together from all parts of the world, and we're gonna, practice these pieces and play them. So, what are some of the pieces that we're gonna be playing? Because I actually haven't looked or don't know that much about it. So,
I could start. This is Laura. This is Laura talking. Well, I had fun. Unmi gave me four cello pieces to pick from, and I picked one that's got cello and electronics. And I'm not going to say his name properly because it's got the Chinese tones. I'm going to mess up. But Shu is the composer. I'm sorry if I didn't get it right. And he wrote a great piece for cello and electronics. It's just me, and we've already met to work on it. We're going to meet again in a week or so to work on it again, and it's based on a real life event, a current event, a plane that crashed in China. So it's kind of it's fairly dark, but it goes through a lot of different emotions, and the cello interacts really interestingly with the electronics. And so I was, yeah, out of the pieces, I was really excited about his, and looking forward to presenting it. Fingers crossed that the tech works. Always hoping for smooth tech, but we'll have a lot of meetings, and so hopefully we'll it'll be smooth and no problems.
is it playback or is it some sort of live electronics involved with it?
It's both. It's got a pre-recorded, and so there's some timing, and I control that with the foot pedal, and sometimes it takes my sound and manipulates it. Mostly playback, and I think he's gone more and more. We kind of fussed with it a little bit. It's going more and more to pre-recorded, so it's less of manipulating what I'm doing. But so it's a little bit of both, though.
Yeah, that's always a hard one. I've done some electronics, and that's always, if you have weeks and weeks within a space to get used to it and check all the levels, but, coming in a day or two before and then trying to do it in a new space where you've just gotten into it, it's like, yeah, it could be dicey. So that's probably a
Yeah,
good
he already
idea.
asked. He already asked you and me. He's like, "Can we have a rehearsal? We're gonna need a rehearsal." And we had a rehearsal and found some kinks, and so we're trying to do our diligence as best we can.
Mhm. Cool. So yeah, Juliana, what pieces are you playing, or what's maybe just like maybe a couple top ones you can
Oh
think of?
yeah, well, I guess I'm also playing a piece with electronics. We'll talk about that first by Melody Chua Dragonfly. I just met with her yesterday actually to talk about it. It's a completely improvised score with some pretty advanced tech. Super cool. She like affixes this like motion sensor to my instrument. That kind of then I'm like using my flute as a actual like controller as well as kind of getting that live processing on whatever sounds I'm going to play. So, yeah, also hoping for super smooth tech, has a video component as well. um, yeah, it should be really cool. Melody has some great ideas cooking on that.
Cool. Yeah, shoot for the stars, I think, for that kind of like you
Hmm.
said, there's always video and yeah, that's really fun to see that the tech coming in, the kind of motion sensor and stuff.
Hmm.
I know for a long time it was like the Connect was everybody was doing that stuff, but now we've even gotten to we're just going to build our own hardware that
Right.
that can do that. Yep. And then so I have to plug this too, I guess. We've had Mari Kimura come on before, but she has Music, which is one of those things. And I think it's gone into production now, but it's a little I forget how many accesses, just Bluetooth connected thing that you can just buy from her now, and then bam, there it is. You have this thing that you can attach to your instrument, and she uses it on violin, on her hand, and to get different things. Like she can figure it out if she's doing pizzicato or if she's doing like long bowing. So that's cool that we'll get to see that at camp. Yeah. All right, so Jamie, what pieces are you playing in?
Okay, well, Laura and I are actually doing a trio with Unmi. It's there. I think there are just three settings of Tracy K. Smith's poems by Patrick Andrew Thompson. Yes. Okay. I wanted to make sure I didn't mess up his name. It should be simple. But really, really lovely, um, thoughtfully written or thoughtful settings of some really interesting Tracy K. Smith poems from her book Life on Mars, which I think was published in, well, I don't want to say the date of the publication because I might be wrong. Anyway,
Mm.
and I just read that book of poetry. Um, but in any case, so I'm doing that trio, and then I'm doing a piece with electronics and trumpet with Arda, um, and that is called "All That's Left Is Dirt and Sky" by Chris Cresswell, who is, I think, Syracuse-based composer. Um, and I'm excited about that. Arda and I are friends, and he's a wonderful person, great musician, and we've never performed together, so that will be really fun. And lastly, I'm doing a duet with Cine, and what I will note is that the two duets that I'm performing were written for husband and wife artists, and the piece I'm performing with Cine is written for a friend and colleague of mine and her husband, Rachel Calway and Ari Streisfeld, and that's called Songs of Bright Orange Notes. And the composer, John Libertor, is a good friend of mine who's written several pieces for me in the past. We went to school together, and that's a beautiful. That's a beautiful collection of songs. There are four songs, texts by Randall Potts, who I think is a Texas-based poet. So yeah, that's that.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. So, just going off the cuff, I'm hearing we have all three of you are playing pieces with electronics, and just I'll bring my own personal thing. I love electronics. I'm actually a programmer as my trade right now, not a musician anymore. Um, so I'm always interested, since we're just talking to performers. Um, what is it like rehearsing things with electronics? Because it sounds like there's some live processing in there. So is everyone kind of well versed? Like, do you all have really nice microphones and audio interfaces and stuff like that, or what are you using? So I'm always interested how performers will, practice these types of things. So is there any interesting thing that people could talk about first, rehearsing these pieces on your own?
I can say, this is Laura talking. I think what it's been interesting is the evolution of music with electronics over even the last 5 or 10 years. The expectation that composers have for us and our own experience. I think I did a Davidoff piece. I remember for a Juilliard jury like back when I was in school. And I think I brought in a boombox, you know, and my teacher had to like push stop and play at the right times. And we hadn't really rehearsed it. And so it was awkward. And, that's maybe that was my first foray into electronics. Nowadays, we laugh. That was so like so old school. Composers now, they expect us to have iPads. Really, I mean, they'd be surprised if we don't. And in this case, he expected that I had a foot pedal. He's like, you're going to use your foot pedal to change it, and I'm like, yeah, I am. So there's an investment on the musician side to have this equipment on our end. In terms of microphones, this didn't require anything special. I think that's maybe beyond what I'd be expected. But this one uses a max patch, and so I have to have some familiarity. I did, thank you, have to like troubleshoot something myself, and I've used a max patch before, and so I was able to navigate it better than if I hadn't ever. So I think we're all evolving and getting more fluent, and the expectation has definitely changed since I was in school. So.
Yeah. Yeah, very. It's cool. It's almost, like you said, it's expected. If you say you're going to do new music, it's almost like, well, you do electronics too, right?
Right.
um,
Right.
what are the other two? So Jamie and Juliana. I mean, how do you feel about that? Are you guys pretty familiar? Do it a lot, so you feel really comfortable, or is this like a new thing?
Yeah, I mean, this is Juliana. I think same as Laura. Right. I mean, it gets easier over time. I thankfully have some experience. Also working in Max, Melody's patch is going to be running through there too. So that's super helpful to have some understanding of what's going on, I think, like through all the processing. Yeah, for Melody setup, it's pretty advanced. Thankfully, like I guess I have the equipment I need at home to be practicing. Uh, mics and whatever. She's going to bring all the equipment I think we need there. But yeah, no, totally new expectations. um,
Mhm.
yeah.
And Jamie, how about you?
This is Jamie, and well, first of all, I actually don't have an iPad. I'm still, a Luddite slash, I really love reading off of paper, and I'm fortunate enough that since I'm not playing a flute or a cello, I can use my hands to turn the pages with ease. So I have that advantage for sure. And I also just really love to mark up my score, write myself notes. Um, so I think it's yeah, that's my take on that for now. We'll see if that changes in the next 10 years. I love having a pedal. I love I know some great musicians who don't really like advancing their own cues or triggering the next whatever event in Max or in PD, Pure Data. Um, so I guess what I would say is I really just started working with electronics, say, 14 years ago. And I feel when I look back, I was a little bit spoiled because I was in an academic setting. And even though I was done with school at that time, I was surrounded by composers who took care of everything for me. And so then I can still remember the first time I had to practice something with electronics, a Max Patch, say in 2012, and I had to do it myself, and it was a little bit like whoa. So there was definitely a learning curve, and actually that patch was problematic, a piece by Kaya Saryaho. But in any case, I'm humbled by electronics, and I'm um, always so impressed with composers who do their own programming. The Chris Creswell's piece, it's not live processing, so that takes some of um, the gambling or whatever the praying to the universe that everything goes okay out of it. And I do have a really nice audio interface that I only just got about 4+ years ago. And in the past, yeah, that was the thing. I was just lucky to have other people letting me use their interfaces. But that is definitely a good thing to have. And we only got a fancy-ish mic. I mean, a nice mic during the pandemic. So, and I can't even tell you what it's called because I'm horrible with those things. Okay, so as I'm admitting, I'm definitely no electronics guru. I can work a patch as long as it's simple, but troubleshooting is can be a little daunting.
Yeah.
But I love singing with electronics. I just am no expert.
Hmm. So that's interesting. I mean, you said there was composers that introduced you to it, or it. So is that for everyone? Is that how you got introduced to it? As you can tell, I like electronics. I'm staying on the subject a long time. So was it because you had to play a piece with it, or did anybody take a course in it? Because I know that more universities are starting to have these courses where it's like, electronics for performers, where you actually learn how to, like you said, do a basic max patch, figure out input, output, stuff like that. So was it kind of just trial and error that you all have started using these things, or were there any courses or anything like that along the way?
I'll go first. If like we've got an order now, so we don't talk
Yeah,
over
that,
each
yep,
other.
that's
We
good.
got it.
Love for that.
We
Yeah.
got it. We're coordinated. We've gotten so used to this like kind of thing. Oh gosh, a course would be awesome. I think I actually did take a course like in quote unquote electronics, but it was more like using software and audio software. And we like composed things. I kind of remember layering things and like kind of having fun with that. So it wasn't a practical guide. As a performer, I'm gonna take what the composers give me, and I don't know. As a performer, I feel like a very willing slave to do what they want me to do, and if they want me to do electronics, that's fine. If there's a video, okay. You want me to stand up and run around? Okay, I will do what you want me to do to make your vision come alive. And so that's yeah, no formal training, but just happy to take what they throw at me.
This is Julianna. I guess I can go next. Um, yeah, I'd had some experience for a while playing with these electronic pieces, especially for flute. I think we're really lucky to have a ton of incredible repertoire um, for flute and electronics that just invites that sort of exploration. But then, really, actually, once the COVID shutdown happened, I began playing, almost exclusively solo and electronics pieces since I was by myself for so long. It was like the natural collaborator, I guess. So I feel like I increased my knowledge so much during that time. And yeah, I've been lucky to take a couple basic courses in that sort of stuff as well. But yeah.
Cool.
Just
And
to break
Jamie,
the order,
mhm.
Juliana, can I ask you a question,
Oh
Juliana?
yeah, go for it.
So in the pandemic, did you think, okay, I need to learn more? Did you like pick new rep for solo flute so that you were continuing to play? I mean, how did that go?
Yeah, actually, yeah, I learned a lot of new repertoire during that time. Yeah, for solo flute. Yeah, and had some new collaborations that came out of it with like people from far away that I think probably I wouldn't have been in touch with otherwise. So I don't know. It turned into kind of a beautiful thing, actually. Yeah.
Um,
You might have already answered the question, Jamie, but yeah, I don't know if you want to
yeah,
add anything because you kind of started it with saying about PD and stuff. But
I have not taken any classes. I would love to have taken a class, or still would love to sit down and have more tutorials. But yeah, I just kind of got thrown into it because I was singing new music, and uh, they needed me to learn a piece that was with electronics, so I did. So,
cool, thank you. Um, so we got on an interesting topic, and two things I guess I'll talk about, and it relates to the pandemic, but I guess one is rehearsals or collaborations. Wondering like if there's anything interesting that you all have had to do. Because I know, like, that's the one thing the internet does not do well is sound. If you've ever tried to play a piece with somebody over Zoom, or even I take guitar lessons over Zoom, and it's like, you kinda can do it, but you can't play along with people. So I'm wondering if is there any interesting things you've had to do to get around that? Like, or are you trying to rehearse any of the pieces right now for camp, or are you gonna just practice your part and do the rehearsals once you get here?
I should field this one first. For camp, I think we're doing it kind of the standard. I have my own procedure for learning my part, and I will come prepared to the best of my ability, and I hope I got it. But I play my main performing gig is with a string quartet, the Bayberry String Quartet, and we do not play not much new music. It's not our thing. We love Beethoven and Mozart, and we're not afraid to admit it. And there's some of the greatest pieces for quartet and such a great repertoire. And we live in three different places, and we started rehearsing in 20. Oh, sorry, we got together in 2018. So we were started rehearsing online fall of 2018, and we have a whole system for how to be productive while being remote, and we have been doing that now for a long time. And we like amped it up in the pandemic and gave workshops and had like online chamber workshops using our system. And it's ever evolving, it is. And there are some things that we uh, you know sort of can't or wait to do until we're in person. But the basic idea is layering. We use a DAW, a digital audio workstation. We used to use BandLab. Now we're using Soundtrap, and we record ourselves and layer the voices. And within that, we have ways of rehearsing. And It works. There's some benefits. There's some forces us to record ourselves, and so I hear how I sound. It it's we look at the score. We know the score really well because we're looking at the score and listening together. We can go really deep. It's like slow, deep work, but it's something. It's how we do it. And, but not for this. For camp, I think we're showing up.
Yeah. Well, interesting. So, I mean, thinking of Beethoven, do you do it with a click track, or it seems like there's a lot of rubato in those types of things? So, how do you get around this? Is there one person that leads it, or maybe that's how you would do it actual in performance? You watch the first violin for the cues or something, or
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
know.
We've gone around this so much. It's audio only, so we're not having visual cues. We sometimes use a metronome for sure. We'll just lay it down, but also we use what we call a counting track, which is somebody counts the beat, and then you can put in your rubato, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 and 1, and so we'll do that to work on our timing and our retards and make it a little more human. So yeah, it's that's a trick that our violist Gabe got from the Cleveland String Quartet. They talked about Shakespearean counting, that you count together to feel the beat. And
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like I'm one of the people too, since I did technology so much. But when we would play these crazy ensemble pieces that had so many time changes, I became like the resident person that could make the click track, because then it was like, man, we got so tight. If it was like, 12/16 into 7/8 into the tempo change, it's almost like, I think maybe the pandemic and even doing things with electronics, it's like it's a different way of practicing. It's not just for performing. It's like you can use technology in so many different ways. Um, yeah, to record yourself or say, hey, we're gonna be able to practice with what we think the metronome is. This retardando is gonna be like, not just a old school metronome that just clicks away. So I don't know. I really like
that's so
that
cool.
kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
we've thought about doing something where I don't know how you did it, but where we'd put the retard into Sibelius or Finale, and so we'd have like a perfect retard, or, have sort of a machine do it. And we haven't done that. We just count it. We did a new music piece by Carmen Moore, Moore, and it had a bunch of meter changes, which was totally going to mess with our system. But one of us just counted it out. Like we just did a count that had all the meter changes. But Zach, we could have used you for that. So I'll keep you in mind
If you ever
next
want,
time.
yeah, I use Ableton, and I've done it for some
Okay.
Xenakis pieces where it had 4 outputs, so everybody had a different click track, and it would line up when it was supposed to line up and stuff, and it was pretty awesome performance of that piece because it was so exact. So you got those like Xenakis kind of like spreading things and things coming back together. Like, it's almost impossible to do without
Oh,
a
that's so
metronome.
cool.
But
Okay, that's
um,
awesome. That's really
anyways,
cool.
well, Julia, yeah, do you have anything to say about that?
Oh, remind me
Just
what the
like, yeah,
question was. I got so carried away
yeah,
listening
we
to you
kind of went
guys.
off. Yeah, it was about, I guess, rehearsing and just how do you practice and rehearse things in this kind of digital remote world now, during the pandemic.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, pretty much the same. I mean, I think this camp um, festival will, yeah, exactly. We'll all come together, hit the ground running with rehearsals. I think Laura will probably be playing on a trio together. I think.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
sure. Yeah.
I think that's the only chamber piece I'm putting together. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, um, for this performance, yeah, I'm only playing otherwise a solo flute piece and this electronics work. So yeah, I mean, totally different setup at home versus at the venue. So I'll prepare all I can. I was talking with Melody yesterday about I have to move around a lot. So I might even
Hmm.
like kind of map out a little space in my home, kind
Yeah.
of practice my movements in the space. But otherwise, yeah.
Has it been mostly solo stuff that you've been doing? You said like over the pandemic, that's why
Hmm.
you learned a lot of new rep. So have you not had to do too many, I guess, remote ensemble pieces or anything
Oh,
like that? Or
sure. Yeah, I haven't done too many. But another thing, I guess, like thanks for the pandemic, I've been sort of getting into is these sort of like free improv sessions, which works pretty well virtually. I think if time isn't so strict, like if you're not worried about like the latency at all. So I've been working some with some of Pauline Oliveros's text scores. I've had some
Hmm.
really great sessions via Zoom, actually, working on those. Just even with some modifications, um, like pieces that might have like hand squeezing or something like that you can't do virtually. That maybe these kind of sounds can come through or something like that. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, cool, really interesting. Jamie, yeah, have you had to do anything? I'm sure you have, but
Yeah, and not much, but really in terms of the pandemic and doing projects from afar, the person I collaborated with was in me, and so we did a, a song cycle by Francis Poulenc, and we also did a couple of pieces by um, French and German composers from women whose works kind of were have not been recorded enough. They haven't been celebrated enough. So uh, that was it. We just kind of shared recordings and shared our thoughts with one another about, oh, I'd like more rubato here. I'd like this to be louder. That was basically it. But I love hearing about what Laura and Juliana did, and I guess I find it really inspiring and touching, like how even in this horrible, really incredibly sad time for millions of people, how like our as artists we found ways to continue to refine our art in very different ways. And like for me, I decided to learn a role from an opera that I may never sing, but it's like my favorite opera of all time, Debussy. So I think it's so cool to hear what other people did, that we might not have done these certain things about like your quartet, the way you practiced and that you've done workshops on it, and collaborating, like you said, Juliana, with people who you may not have collaborated with, and exploring more electronics. That was kind of, and not forced, but it was the way we sustained ourselves in a really challenging environment,
hmm.
unprecedented time. So.
Yeah, and I would say just in my job, so I work remotely from home, doing software development, but before we never would say it was like, nope, no remote work. You always had to be in the office. And it kind of hindered us because then you could only get people in your city, in your town, that you could drive. But now that we're saying, hey, we're totally remote, well, now we get people from Chicago applying. We get people from California that will work with us. So it's almost the same thing. It's like, well, maybe because of the pandemic, maybe we've reached out more and we can say, hey, why can't I do a project with somebody in Germany or, Finland or somewhere else? Because, hey, we figured out how to do it with people, who are an hour away from us just because we didn't want to be, around each other and get each other sick. So I don't know. The silver lining, yeah, it's changed everything, not just music, but I mean every type of work, or art or anything we do. So again, on the pandemic, I mean, this is interesting for me, just because personally I've been doing this more, but we're talking about, contemporary classical music here, but are there other types of music that you all are interested in, either if it's, I don't know, pop music or jazz or I don't know, even the different types of indigenous music? I know people have gotten into, I don't know, is there any other things other than contemporary classical music that really interest you? And maybe what's some of your favorites if you have some?
I'll go
Mhm.
first. Probably maybe a shorter answer. This is Laura. I'm everything I do is under the classical umbrella. I do feel it's a very diverse kind of music, whether it's playing a string quartet by Beethoven for in a small intimate setting, doing new music and some kind of really interest, like a non kind of concert type of setting. Sometimes I play with the symphony here, so it's orchestral music in a big hall, and so it feels very varied. I also do early music, particularly from my time in Connecticut. So if I'm playing a continual line one day and a recital and then a new music piece the next day and then an orchestra piece, I'm like, this is really kind of different. But that being said, it's all under the classical umbrella.
Hmm. Yeah, and maybe is it worth? I don't know. Do you all like those terms? I mean, I guess I'll let Juliana and Jamie speak to the other parts, but do you like that term, or do you think it's actually like a hindrance, or should we
The
just
word
call it music?
classical?
Yeah, because it does evoke something. You say contemporary
Yeah,
classical, and people, if they're not into this sphere, they kind of like, what does that mean? Or they say
yeah.
classical, and they immediately say Mozart or Beethoven. Or
Yeah,
probably
I
not
think
even
it's a
Bach. Yeah.
I think it's a really confusing term. It's because it could mean the classical era, it could be classical music. I even taught a class, a college class, and on 21st century music, and I still don't think they thought they were learning about classical music like the whole time. I don't think they knew what we were doing. Like at the end, I'd be like, "So when you," I asked them at the beginning and end, like, "When you think of classical music, what do you think of?" And it's like they kind of thought Beethoven the whole time. It's like it
Hmm.
didn't really evolve, and so I think it's absolutely a confusing word, and you're totally right, Zach. Outside our world, you say new music or contemporary music, they don't really know what that means. I don't have a better term for it, but I do think it's confusing. People think contemporary classical, they probably think like contemporary church music or something. I don't know.
Mm,
It's like,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I'm a huge metal fan and like prog rock, and like that's really, I don't know. I almost feel like it's bad to use that word, because like you listen like contemporary classical music, because you listen to like a band like Meshuggah when I'm really, and they're like, it's so complicated, and but people would never think of that in the same vein, as even though it's using all the same elements, and there's no vocal, or there might be vocals, but then there's another band I really like is Polyphia, no vocals, right? They're all just a progressive rock metal band. And I would always think, well, it has to have words for people to like it. And more I'm finding like, no, there's tons of people who love music that has no words in it. So I don't know. Maybe it's starting to change my mind about,
right. Well,
maybe
you're
it's a new
saying that the
time.
music, some music you like to listen to, those terms are loaded as well. Maybe people have, is that kind of what you're saying, that people have impressions of what that kind of music is, just as they have
Yeah.
impressions of what classical is, and it doesn't always encapsulate what it really is.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think some people who like metal or like prog rock, or they usually do, are more into classical music, or whatever you would call that. Maybe they would listen to, like, Philip Glass, just as much. But it's yeah, I feel like sometimes it can be a weird, like, either people think, "Oh, I'm not smart enough to listen to that," or, "Oh, it's not." I'm like, it's all the same stuff, guys. It's all
Mm.
the same notes and rhythms. It's just how you packaged it. So that's my thought. Anybody else have thoughts on that kind of stuff? We can go to Juliana. Yeah.
No, I think about that all the time with prog rock, though. You're totally right about that. Like, yeah, just changing meters and everything. Yeah, myself, I'm outside of doing like I guess quote unquote classical music. I play with a hip hop group actually in Cincinnati, which is super fun. That was something totally new to me in the last couple of years. But yeah, we kind of have a little mini orchestra, some string players, wind players, a couple drummers, a DJ, and a rapper that we do some covers and original kind of collaborations with that. It's been super, super fun. Otherwise, I love listening to anything and everything. Yeah.
Hmm. Cool. Yeah, the hip hop thing. There's there's a open, I forget what it's called, but anyways, around here in Dunedin, they'll do rap things but they'll always have a live band, and I think that's just so cool to not just see a DJ running, a beat, which is fine, but to see actual musicians playing while people rap over it is,
Yeah.
it's
And I mean,
amazing.
like, I think modern hip hop, at least, there's so much sampling of like kind of those, I don't know, little older orchestral scores and that kind of thing. So, right, to just get that kind of like live is really nice.
Yeah, and yeah, you can steal like the sample and actually play the sample, or it's even like, I think sampling has definitely changed the way people play. Like I know, at least for drum set players, a lot of the times now it's reversed, where they like chop and screwed the drums so much that now drum set players are trying to emulate the sampling, and now it's coming back around, and then that gets sampled, and it's this really interesting.
Yeah. And
Um,
for like flute, at least, I feel like I can better imitate some of those, like, you know, um, right. process drum sounds, like using kind of extended techniques on the flute, I can make a more approximate version of that, maybe than
Mhm.
like someone on a drum set could, maybe.
Yeah, right. So it's that's I always like to see those pieces that will do that, again, we're like maybe concert music is more what I should say. Like it's in a
Hmm.
concert hall, but it'll be like I can totally tell that they were influenced by this sound or this sample or this 808 patch or something like that that sounds a certain way and that's I guess it's supposed to reflect how we live and if that's what you listen to all the time, well, that's what you listen to. It's going to come out in your music, so yeah. Jamie, how about you? Are you into
Um,
Are you in a hip hop group?
I am not in a hip hop group, but I think that's super cool, Juliana. I I really, for me, I there's a lot of music that I listen to and love, including mostly jazz. But even that is such a huge umbrella. And uh, I guess as an artist, I really perform exclusively music, almost exclusively music written after 1900. So, and I'm very happy and content with that. But I like revere Beethoven, and I have the Cleveland String Quartet record. Like so, and I have the piano concerti and all the symphonies, and I love Brahms. So it's like I really revere the continuum. I'm not like some big early music person, but like Bach onward, I love it. I love it. I love it. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'm in.
So this is interesting too. Thinking about this, did you all find this music, so classical music or whatever type of, I guess, concert music? Did you find this all in school, or were you all interested in this before college? So like maybe high school time, because I know for a lot of people that studied, that's when they were introduced as like your freshman year in music history class or something like that. But were there I guess what got you into classical music? And I guess that's more of the question. Was it school or was it, oh, I love this stuff before I got to school and that's why I went? I feel like it's two different paths people go down. Either I love music and then I learn about the history. It's like, no, I already know a lot of the history and that's why I'm going to school for music.
Because I need to think about it for a sec. Could somebody
Yeah.
else go first?
Sure, Juliana, do you want to speak or do you want me to?
Sure, sure, I can go. I'm kind of fresh out of school, actually, so maybe I can speak on it. But yeah, I mean, I think the first time I played in like an orchestral setting, I was just like totally blown away. I mean, I really don't think there's much that competes with that. Like sitting in the middle of an orchestra, that like totally made me fall in love with kind of that more traditional concert music. I didn't really know about yeah, the sort of contemporary scene until I was in college for sure. And I often wonder, for my students and for other people kind of coming up now, I think unfortunately it's not all super accessible, um, kind of modern contemporary music. But I think there's so much cool stuff being written, that yeah, I want more younger people to get into that.
Yeah, I wonder how. I mean, I'll be honest. Um, Napster and all that stuff is bad. Stealing music is bad. But that's how I learned about Xenakis and like Steve Reich in high school. Actually, I was just like, I'm interested in this. Download it all, and just found things that are like, how do you know about Lockenmon? And you're like in 10th grade. Like, what? Who? So it was. Yeah, I wonder how we can how, people can find this stuff more. Or maybe it's just some people are just really into weird stuff. I feel like some of the people that are into weird like John Zorn or like punk rock stuff would gravitate to that if they knew again that this is a different side of classical music, that they would be like, "Oh, that's not what I thought it was." And so, yeah. Did you think of what you wanted to say?
Okay, I
A
think
little
I,
bit
I
there.
think I've got it. Well, yeah. um, yeah, I think similar to Juliana, I didn't know about new music until college. It's like had barely played anything that had been by a living composer growing up. My dad really likes classical music. He's a symphony goer, so I think it was kind of natural for me to listen to classical music growing up. And I had Vivaldi's greatest hits and Bach's greatest hits and Tchaikovsky's greatest hits and that kind of thing when I was a kid. But I also in high school listened to, like in Chicago, there's I don't know if it's still like 96.3, the radio station with all the like kind of punk club music. And then I would listen to also like the soft rock station. And then I listened to class. And it was like, but as a kid, it's fabulous because you don't know. I've got categories and you're just like listening to stuff and you're like, I'm in the mood. And so it's like such a great time to be an open book and just listen to a bunch of random things um, and then learn, oh, that's what I was listening to, or that's what that is. And so just being a kid is so cool in that way and being able to explore. But then I studied with, in school, in college with Fred Sherry, who's like the new music cellist and he's fabulous. And so I think he got me, I don't know, if you've worked with him, Jamie, in New York, being in New York.
I know him, and my husband's worked with him, but I haven't worked with him. But yeah, I know he's really wonderful.
Yeah, so he sealed the deal on new music stuff for me, and I was so lucky to have worked with him.
So Jamie, yeah, do you have a classical like family, or what were you?
I have, yeah. So, I was really into jazz. I listened to a ton of classic rock and also like the grunge but I was super into jazz, and my undergrad's in jazz, and I played classical piano, and I loved playing classical piano, but I didn't grow up listening to classical music in our house. I mean, my parents listened to some jazz, some like WNUA 95.5 from Chicago. I'm also from outside Chicago. And like a lot of Motown and great R&B kind of stuff. So that was my upbringing. Definitely not classical at all. And then I got to my undergrad and started becoming a little disillusioned with jazz. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I really didn't start singing new music until about 16 years ago. And I kind of found it. I kind of had a really meandering path, which I'm still very happy with because I think it informs my artist, my sensibilities, and I've learned a lot along the way. But it was definitely not a like boop bop. It wasn't this. I learned this, and then I learned that. It's been an interesting and great ride so far.
I think that's good to hear for if people are listening that are, in their undergrad right now, or whoever's listening to this is younger. It's great to say that, meandering, because I've meandered a lot too. I meandered out of music a little bit too, but that's okay as long as you're a lover of it. So I like hearing that. I think everybody needs to hear that. Um, that's younger, that maybe says, no, I got to stick on the path. And like, yeah, you can go off the path if you want. Just yeah. One question for Juliana. So, I mean, you're talking about orchestra. So, did you grow up in more of an orchestra or band? Because I know for me, it was like band. I never played an orchestra until I was in college because my high school didn't have a proper orchestra. But I think that's because I'm from a little town in the middle of Florida. If you're from a bigger town, maybe they have a really good orchestra.
Yeah, I definitely grew up in the band scene
Okay.
in the South. Yeah. Yeah, almost like so much so that I think like I became a little anti-band. I think I need to become more open-minded to like there's so much good wind ensemble repertoire out there and stuff that I still need to kind of listen to. But it was almost like my retaliation against that I kind of got into more like orchestral stuff. And I was like really serious about that until I got to college and realized like, oh, there's all this other really cool music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how it changed. I really wanted to do Broadway stuff, play in a pit, and then I went and did it for a little bit, and then I was like, "Wow, that's a lot." I'm gonna get off that path. So cool. Well, I think we're getting close to the end here. I guess the thing to like close us out is I usually like to ask people what they have coming up. Like I know you're gonna be at camp, but any other cool projects that you haven't mentioned, or if you want to reiterate that you're doing instead of camp coming up. So we can start with Laura.
Okay. I kind of have my steady stream of stuff with Ensemble Vim and with my string quartet. This weekend, I'm recording a video recording of two movements of Jesse Montgomery's duo for violin and cello with dancers. This is one thing Vim does: is these multidisciplinary works. So that's this weekend. And I don't think I have anything sort of like really notable. I mean, camp's only in a few weeks. I don't think I have anything else to share before then, but still, some court. Oh no, that's not true. My quartet is playing a concert the week before. Um, yeah, so we're breaking out our first performance of Beethoven Opus 74. So
Mm.
yeah.
Cool. So where's that at? Is that in Atlanta
That's going
or
to be
in?
in Birmingham.
Okay, Birmingham. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Okay, Juliana.
Sure. Yeah, I guess in the next couple of weeks, I have some concerts with a group called New Downbeat, another new music ensemble in Cincinnati, collective of composers and female identifying performers. So we have some concerts coming up, and then shortly after Campground, I'll be doing some performances of a collaboration I'm doing with composer Abel MGE. It's a piece called Sadie's Story for flute and recorded interviews. Really, really beautiful piece. So that's coming up right after Campground. So I'm sort of working with that piece as well right now. Yeah.
Cool. And then Jamie.
Right before campground, I'm doing a concert with Cindy and Unmi, so all different permutations, a couple pieces for voice and violin, and a couple pieces for voice and piano, and one trio piece for the three of us. And then I'll do a piece. I guess one of the things I'm most excited about is a piece by Katie Balch. That's for I play wine glasses and sing, and my feet will be in gravel. She even wrote rhythms for the gravel. And so that's like the March 10th. And then I have actually a concert of mostly music with electronics, but all music that was written for my husband and me, and then a solo voice electronics piece right at the beginning of April. So that's what's right in the immediate future.
Are you going to put wine in the wine glasses?
No, because I think it might turn. I just use water. Yeah. But I like that question.
maybe last performance, I don't know.
I love it. I love it.
I've seen that
Never.
before. I forgot what it was, but yeah, I've seen people do that. Be like, all right, we're using wine on stage for this one just because it's awesome.
That is really funny. You're always having to
Great.
tweak, like with the dropper. In tune.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah.
Can't waste the wine.
Can't waste the wine, right?
Awesome. Well, thank you, all three of you, for talking to me today. And then, yeah, for all the listeners, come see them perform at CAMPGround23.
And if you're in Tampa on March 10th, you can come to the USF Concert Hall and hear me and Cindy and myself present music from Korea and Finland and the United States.
Oh, yeah. Great. Okay. March 10th. We'll put that up there too. Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, and have a good rest of your day.
All right, thank you.
Nice to meet you. See you soon.